Well, let's get the thoughts of Labour now. We're joined once again in the studio by the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Jonathan Ashworth. Good to see you this morning. Given that which we've just been hearing, in and around Mariupol, Kiev, Lviv, we are hearing any number of stories of atrocities taking place on the ground in Ukraine. Do you understand why the government feels unable to go quite as far as the Ukrainian president and describe these as war crimes, as genocide, and indeed identify Vladimir Putin as responsible for them?
Well, they are heinous atrocities, absolutely appalling. In my view, there are crimes. Now, I'm not an international lawyer, so there may well be particular definitions, but what we are seeing coming out of Ukraine is absolutely the most appalling scenes. I do hold Putin responsible. He needs to be held to account, and the international community need to find a way to do that. But we need to continue to do all we can to support Ukraine. We need to support the refugees. And I've got nothing but absolute tribute to everybody who has donated to the different charity appeals, including in my own Leicester constituency, where I've been supporting it. We need to do all we can, and of course we need to ensure that the maximum pressure is put on Russia through the sanctions regime. I
mean, you say that Vladimir Putin, indeed, as did Sajid Javid this morning, that he must be held to account. I suppose the question is how is that possible, given you're not going to be able to extradite him to the ICC?
Well, there will have to come a point where the international community need to come together and decide how to hold him to account. But in the immediate term, we've got to support the refugees coming out of Ukraine with the proper humanitarian assistance. I know the government is putting in place schemes, but I've been reading that the charity groups and the local authorities that the government are understandably asking for help have been left in the lurch, don't know what provisions they're going to get, what support they're going to get. So we need clarity from government as to how they're going to help the refugees in the short term. But of course, we need to, as an international community, work together internationally to put in place a plan in order to hold Russia to account.
What then did you make of the Prime Minister's remarks to the Conservative Spring Conference? I've heard from the Health Secretary this morning, we heard from the Chancellor yesterday, claiming that he was not drawing a direct comparison between the two. He certainly mentioned them in short succession.
Well, he was drawing a direct comparison, but you know what? Do you know why he was doing it? He's a clever operator. He's a very good manipulator. He throws these things out there to suck the oxygen out of the other big issues that are around. And he's trying to distract people from the cost of living crisis, where 9 million families are going to be £500 worth off, where he's imposing this punishing tax rise on people, where pensioners are going to lose £388 in the value of the basic state pension. He's just doing it so we all sort of have a row on that, rather than focus on the issues that are impacting the British people day in, day out, which is the fact that many of them are facing starving or freezing, in the words of Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert.
I want to talk about that in a bit more depth in just a second, but let's talk about something completely on your brief and the situation as regards P&O ferries. 800 individuals fired with apparently no warning. What is it that the Labour are trying to seek in the Commons today? Is this just a rerun of the efforts made by Barry Gardiner beforehand to get fire and rehire as a practice banned?
We need action from the government. I mean, the way P&O have acted, P&O ferries have acted towards their seafaring workforce here is beyond contempt. It's absolutely disgusting.
Is it legal, though? By your understanding, is it illegal? Because, again, neither of us are lawyers. There are plenty of lawyers who suggest that it perhaps wasn't.
Well, but that's why we need clarity from the government. As I understand it, the government knew this was going to happen and didn't tell anyone. I mean, what are they playing at? By the way, I've got nothing but tribute for the RMT union and Carl Turner, he's one of the local MPs, and actually Louise Haigh, my colleague, the Shadow Transport Secretary, they have all been superb in fighting for these workers. But these practices should be outlawed, and the government, the business secretary, should be looking into the legalities of it. He should be, if they believe it is illegal, looking at criminal proceedings against the bosses of this firm. And it's no good Tory MPs wringing their hands saying it's all terrible. Many of them voted against the legislation which a Labour MP brought forward to ban these fire and rehire practices, and they should vote with us today in the House of Commons to ban these fire and rehire type practices.
But what can the government do, bar wholesale changes to legislation about, a company like P&O Ferries hiring via foreign agencies individuals on less than the minimum wage?
Well, they need to stamp it out. They need to stamp it out. They don't need to parade around the studios after this morning saying, "Oh, say it's terrible. I was shocked when I saw it on the screens as well." They're the government. They can do something about it. And Tory MPs can do something about it. So they should vote with us today to send a message to the Business Secretary and others in the Cabinet that they need to fix this.
Just a quick word then from what you would like to see from the Chancellor come Wednesday. His hands are not exactly tied. There's quite a bit of extra cash floating around in the Treasury at the moment, thanks to the rise in the cost of living and the extra tax take that they're taking. So where should he be spending?
Well, look, we've had 12 years of economic mismanagement, which has left us so exposed to surging inflation. And that now means we've got rising energy bills so unaffordable, we've got tax rises so punishing, universal credit cuts so severe, basic state pension cuts so devastating, that people, as Martin Lewis says, are facing a choice between starving or freezing. He should increase he shouldn't be cutting benefits like the pension and universal credit. He shouldn't be going ahead with this big national insurance rise, a 10% increase. He could put a windfall tax on the oil and gas producers to fund £600 off the heating bills for many households. So there is action the Chancellor should take, and he should take it in his money budget on Wednesday.
Well, we'll find out if he's been listening to you then. Jonathan Ashworth, thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot.